Good morning or afternoon whenever you see this video. So I just dropped off Malachi at school. My husband dropped off Matthew, and I'm actually on my way to go for a walk. Hopefully I can build up these walks to me running, but I'm just more so trying to get back to feeling like myself, or as close to it as possible. And a part of that, and why I don't feel like myself, is I've lost a lot in my grief journey. And that's what I really want to talk about today. Because although my son is here, he's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine to what we consider fine. There is a grief journey that comes with a diagnosis, and that's just not an autism diagnosis, but a diagnosis in general, especially when it comes to kids. There is a grief journey that goes with it. And I think a lot of times we don't process it, and it comes to us and appears to us in different ways. And for me, with my son getting diagnosed with autism and us just kind of jumping into it, getting his services, and just kind of trying to make sure that we give him the best life possible. He wasn't even 2 when he started therapy. He wasn't even 2 when he got diagnosed. We started early. We had all of the naysayers and the negative talk early on. And a lot of that is people saying, oh, don't get him tested. They just want to give your kids drugs and things like that. I want people to get out of the mindset that getting your child a diagnosis means that they need to be on medication and things like that, because it's not the case for everyone. And, I thank God that that's not the case for us. And if it ever comes down to a point where we need to, our ego is set aside. We're working to make him the best that he can possibly be and setting him up for the future, because we're not going to always be here. And I want him to become independent, because again, we are not going to always be here, and we never want to put the burden on his brother to feel as if though he can't live his life to the fullest because he's going to be worried about his brother. I don't want to raise them in fear. I don't want to raise them in doubt and things of that nature. So back to the mourning. Mourning looks different for everyone. Just like you mourn the loss of a grandparent or a parent or a friend, things of that nature. There is also mourning when it comes to the diagnosis. And by that, I mean, for me personally, when my son was diagnosed, there was a lot of, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Or what could I have done different? Things of that nature. And you get to the realization, like, I am enough. There is nothing wrong with my child. I accept the diagnosis. I can do hard things. So that means I can deal with the late nights, because I'm learning how to help him fall asleep because he can't turn his brain off. I am learning that this feeling that I feel seeing other kids that were once his friend and they were once here, and now I see the kid is up here, my son is still stagnant, or maybe he's just about here. I'm not jealous. I can still be happy for my friends and their kids, but I can also still hurt because my son's future does not look like what I planned in my mind. I'm grieving all the things in my mind that I thought the future would look like for my child. That's what I'm grieving. And it doesn't just come once. I do notice that it does come in waves, in different settings. Like when you see your friends, you know, kids who are the same age as your kids, like their kids are going off to school independently, or they can tie their shoe, or perhaps they can wipe their bottom, or even just use the bathroom. That's a very big one. Thankfully, my son can use the restroom. He is potty trained. But I also know other people who are on the spectrum, who are in their teens, who still have difficulty using the bathroom. Like there is a mourning that comes with acceptance, and it comes in different waves. My son just started kindergarten, and although he can read, although he does math and taught himself addition, subtraction, he's on multiplication right now. Although he can do all these great things, he is still considered less than in a lot of areas. And, you know, a lot of times we still have to mourn those things. Will he stay in, you know, public school setting for long? Absolutely not. You know, we do have our plans on how we want his future to look. And a lot of that entails us going back to homeschooling him full time. Now, I still do homeschool him, even though he is in a public school setting. I homeschool both my kids. I can't expect them to learn everything they need to at school. I have to do my part as a parent. I can't just rely on the school to teach them X, Y, and Z. I also need to teach them their ABCs and all the JKs and things in the middle. So my thing is, I'm grieving not being able to rest how I would like to. I'm grieving not being able to take time for myself like I would want to. Those days will come, but in this moment, I can't do those things. I'm grieving not being able to just pick up and drop my kids off with, you know, their grandparents and maybe taking a romantic vacation with my husband. Like, I'm grieving those things. I'm grieving my son starting ESC. That was a really big one. I remember going into our last IEP meeting this past May, and I went in there with the mindset of, my kid is so smart. He's going to be in mainstream classes. Like, I don't want him in ESC. Because although I have made it this far in our journey, ESC also was something new for me. I mean, I've known ESC kids. I've seen ESC kids growing up. That's all I know. I don't know other people who have kids in ESC. I don't. So I'm also in a different county than where I was raised. And I will say, going into that IEP meeting, I went in with the mindset of, this is what I want for him. And I left that meeting agreeing for him to go into ESC because I checked myself. I went in there with my ego because of what I didn't want for it to look like for him. There's absolutely nothing wrong with ESC. And I felt as if though he didn't need it because of the way that I know he can act. But there's a difference between the way your child acts at home with a parental support and the way your child acts at school with other students, with other distractions, with other difficulties, you know. And ultimately what made me put him in ESC is the fact that, yes, he can go to the restroom, but also he still needs assistance. Like, he will need you to help pull his pants up. He will need you to actually come and get him because he's gonna sit on the toilet until he feels like he's ready. And in a typical classroom setting, there's no teacher waiting on you. You're gonna go to the restroom on your own. And my son is the type of person, you know, 30 minutes can go by. Then he'll probably realize, like, oh, let me get up. He needs help putting his clothes back on. So Am I going to allow him to walk through the entire school back to his classroom with his pants in his hands? No. So I put my feelings aside and I realized what was best for him. So as I get ready to walk, just thinking about my grief journey and what it means for me. And I hope that in me sharing a lot of what we go through, what we've been through, what we know, that this helps someone cross whatever point in their journey that they're at. I definitely want to share the things that we have done. I want to talk about services because, yes, my son is taking speech. He's taking occupational therapy. We were in ABA therapy for quite some time. So we want to dive into all of that and also get the perspective of, how things are on a dad's end. So as I get ready to go touch some grass, I just wanted to check in.